Hello and welcome back to another episode of Old Ass Cameras. I'm Sean Treadway, and today we're going to be talking about this guy. But before I get into the video, I wanted to ask you guys a personal question. Yes or no to the beard? Been thinking about shaving it, starting to get a little warmer out, and I don't know if I like it anymore. I don't know if it really plays well on the camera. So let me know in the comments, and let's roll the freaking intro. Today I'm going to be talking about the Kodak No. 1A Autographic Camera. But before I do that, let's roll some tasty B-roll. Hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. So this camera was introduced in April of 1914. So that's what, 26 years old? So this camera was introduced in April of 1914, making it 106 years old in just a couple months. Not a couple months after introduction, but like a couple months from now. It was later discontinued in 1927. And this camera specifically would have been a slightly later model in that year, coming out in December, because that's when they actually introduced the autographic model. So this camera used autographic style film, the 116 size, and you can actually see back here, the buttons still work. Like most of this actually still works, but this is where they actually kept the film. So as you can see by the size here, that's the whole size of your photo, roughly 2.5 inches by 4 1/4, I think, which makes it about like the size of my cell phone screen, which is actually kind of cool. And this little guy here actually winds your film up, so you can actually pull the film across. So you would have loaded it in here, and then your finished roll would be right there. So the lens on this camera was a meniscus achromatic, or rapid rectilinear. That's kind of a mouthful there. But what it basically means is that they have 2 to 3 groups of 2 elements that kind of offset the light from each other and help reduce chromatic aberration. So it made a better, crisper photo overall. Yeah, I wasn't really able to find any photos from this camera, and I highly doubt that they make this film anymore, or else I would take this thing out. Because as you saw from the B-roll sequence, the shutter release button still works. So the original cost of this camera was anywhere from $11 to $24, which when you inflation calculate that, that goes anywhere from $284 to $619. Like, could you imagine paying $619 for this thing? I actually paid $20 for it at a consignment shop here in town. I could not imagine paying $619 for this, but it was probably the best of its kind when it came out. Like, I spent $2,000 on my A7R3, and 100 years from now, it'll probably look the same to, those people far in the future. One of the coolest things I found while researching this camera was that only 48,000 of these were made in that time frame. So it's actually fairly rare. I have other cameras in my collection that we'll do videos on in the future, but like 800,000 of those were made. Only 48,000 of these were made. So I'm actually really happy that I found this, because it's not that rare, but it's pretty rare. So going into some of the like mechanical specs of this camera, it does have a shutter release button here. As you saw in the B-roll, I was playing with it. I'm trying not to play with it as much as possible, because there is a small tear in the actual cable lining here. But it does work. It does have different shutter speeds. So if you click this little guy over, it actually changes the shutter speed. And then this also is like your aperture. I don't know if you can really see that, but it's opening and closing the aperture ring on the outside to let more light in. The other really cool thing I found is that there's a little button on the side here that you can actually press, and if I can find it, there we go. So you can press that, and this is how you pull focus. So there's a little graph here that shows you different feet, different distances. And so depending on how far away your subject was, you would move this to the right spot to get focus right. And that's how you got your focus. Some of the other things I liked about this guy is that, so this all folds into itself and becomes a little, I don't know, kind of pill-shaped camera. But the thing that helps you pull out the camera also turns into a kickstand. So that's what actually holds it straight up. If you can see that. Holds it up there. And then it also has a second one on the side here that folds out. So if you're doing kind of like landscape style photos, it's also flat depending on what you're setting it on. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it for this camera. I couldn't really find a whole lot of info on it. Don't know who designed it. I just know that it's super old and super badass. This one's actually in really good condition from some of the ones I've found online, people's pictures on forums and whatnot. There is a bit of like delaminating on the leather right here. So in the future, I might try to figure out what kind of glue I can use and just make sure that doesn't get any worse. But for the most part, I'm going to keep it the same. I might make a quick episode on restoring it. So if you want to see that, let me know in the comments. Because I'll probably do that with future cameras as well if there's any like serious damage on it. But yeah, overall, super stoked that I found this. It was literally just lying there in its closed up form, which I don't want to keep pulling it in and out because I'm afraid I'm going to break it. So I'm not going to show you how to scrunch it up. But basically, I can show you part of it. It goes in like this, and you can push it all the way in. Yeah, it scares me doing that. But it was fully closed, and you could tell people had messed with it a little bit trying to get it open. And for whatever reason, they had it labeled as a antique NOLA camera because of the back plate that says what kind of camera it is. It says number 1A, which looks like NOLA. So they're only charging $20 for it. I'm sure I could probably find it cheaper on eBay or something like that. But I mean, I couldn't pass it up just being able to get it right then and there and add it to my collection. So yeah, I mean, that's about it on the Kodak number 1A Autographic Camera. If you want to see more of these episodes, let me know again. I've been asking a lot of let me knows in the comments, but I have a handful of other cameras I plan on doing. And if you actually have cameras that you want to send me or you're selling cameras, let me know also. You can hit me up on Instagram or my website, which is just SeanIsn'tReal.com. And until next time, keep taking photos and video if that's your thing. And I just fucking love you.